print-to-tablet strategy. Stephen Casbier, Vice President of Consulting for Innodata, will begin the presentation in about 3 minutes. We want to give some folks a chance to log in, get familiar with the GoToWebinar system. So thank you very much for joining promptly, for those of you who are already on the line. And bear with us for about another 2 to 3 minutes while we give some folks a chance to log in. Appreciate it. All right. Well, again, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining our webinar this afternoon. What is your print-to-tablet strategy? Is presented by Innodata, and in a few minutes I'm going to introduce Stephen Casbier to go ahead and start the presentation. But first, a couple housekeeping items. In order to ensure that everyone can hear the presentation, all participant lines will be muted throughout the webinar. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, so please send all of your questions via the chat box on the GoToWebinar box that is toward the upper right of your screen. There's a little orange arrow that you can use to expand that little chat box, and you'll be able to type in your questions. We will see them. Don't be shy. Please feel free to send questions in any time during the webinar. We'll queue them up and we'll get to them after Stephen's presentation, but you're free to send in questions anytime. Also, if you're having any trouble from an audio or video perspective, please feel free to let us know through the chat box as well, and we'll try to solve your problem as best we can. If you've decided to call into the session using your telephone, we strongly recommend that you mute your computer speakers so that you can avoid any feedback. Thanks for all of that. So no news in talking about the growth of e-books and tablets. The growth is real, and it will continue, unabated, in terms of sales, content, and, of course, culture. And Stephen's going to take you through some statistics that prove that. However, Innodata is in a bit of a unique vantage point, being in the middle of this business for the last 3 to 4 years, really at the forefront of the business. And we've had this vantage point. We've been able to observe the impact of this change, and we've noticed some things. For all the volume of attention being paid to getting more and more print-based content onto tablets, there's a collective challenge to create a high-level winning strategies that stand behind the tactical conversion process. In other words, we know we have to move content to digital formats. We know tablets are a prime medium, but how can we maximize the opportunity that this presents, and what are the key factors we should be considering before and after the conversion process? As we talk with our clients and other content-producing leaders, we see an opportunity to share our thoughts on not just the mechanics of the conversion process, but rather the strategic elements that content leaders need to consider in order to maximize their investment in print-to-tablet initiatives. One other thing to keep in mind is that the topic at hand is not relative only to traditional publishers. Any organization that is creating content for support, instruction, compliance, or operational processes needs to be keenly aware of the opportunities presented by growth in tablet usage. Today's discussion will be highly relevant to content development leaders in high-tech, financial services, insurance, manufacturing, healthcare, and others. The underlying strategic components Stephen will be discussing today will help drive your success as you navigate through your print-to-tablet initiatives. So let me introduce Stephen Casbier. He's going to share his perspectives on the strategic elements of this. Stephen is Innodata's Vice President of Consulting, and he has worked with dozens of companies by advising executives on adapting to and benefiting from the rapid change in the information industry, including business and technology strategies, process reengineering, and organizational design. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Casbier.
It is true what Mark says. Content conversion is only part of what needs to be considered when thinking about going print to tablet. So for about the next half hour or so, we're going to explore together some of the external factors related to tablets that are impacting publishers and other information providers. This informational change creates a number of challenges for our businesses, and we'll talk about what can be done in the face of those challenges. Finally, we'll wrap up with the core elements of a print-to-tablet strategy and, with any bit of luck, some actionable information for you. Now, this is not a technical discussion, but technology is an important part of what you need to consider in a print-to-tablet strategy. Now, Outsell defines tablets as one of the 5 disruptive technologies to watch in 2011, along with companion technologies of HTML5 and social messaging. The impact of the tablet on our business has certainly been disruptive over this year, and we expect that to continue as more and more tablets enter the marketplace and more people come to expect delivery of content on a tablet. According to forecasts by Gartner, within 3 years, over 300 million tablet computers will be sold. This jump from 0 to 300 million in 5 short years is nothing if not incredible. Already, according to ABI research, more tablets were sold than netbooks in the second quarter of this year. We see that Apple and Google will remain dominant in the tablet market, as 85% of these devices will run either Apple's iOS or some variant of Google's Android operating system, with BlackBerry and Windows mobile devices playing a lesser role. We'll look at how the device market is shaking out in a few minutes. That is, if you can say that this market is shaking out anytime soon. This research is from eMarketer and has been very well circulated over the last few weeks. They predict that by the end of this year, 33.7 million Americans will use a tablet device at least monthly. This is nearly 160% higher than last year when the iPad was first released. The iPad was a game changer, which shifted not only the way people access information, but also their expectations about how information should be presented to them. And the iPad is clearly demonstrating its dominance in the tablet market today. This slide shows the result of a study done in November by the Association of Magazine Media. They asked magazine readers about electronic mobile device ownership and confirmed, or at least reiterate, Apple's current dominance in tablets. They find a more balanced playing field in the e-reader market and hint that diversity of price points, features, and functionality will play an important role in consumer and professional selection of devices. And this is punctuated by Amazon's recent introduction of the Kindle Fire. The Kindle Fire is making rapid gains in the technology market. It was released in the U.S. less than a month ago, and it's beginning to fuel the Amazon numbers that you see in this chart. From a price point and features point of view, both the Kindle Fire and the Barnes & Noble Nook Color sit somewhere in the middle between the full tablet device and e-readers. Now again, while this isn't a technical discussion, when we talk about tablets, technical issues do need to be considered when you're thinking about strategy. An interesting thing about Kindle Fire is that it utilizes an e-book format called Kindle Format 8, or KF8. KF8 provides the file format for all Kindle e-ink devices and Kindle apps. So why is this interesting? It's interesting because KF8 supports a host of web standards, including HTML5 and CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets. And these are interesting because those standards give you the tools needed to create richly formatted, graphical, interactive books. Another interesting fact about Kindle Fire is that since Amazon is not replacing its other Kindle e-devices, Amazon itself is going to be supporting multiple platforms, albeit with the same file format. We see the challenges that this environment creates across 3 dimensions. Business model, or how we're going to make money at this, product development, and the critical decisions that must be made today to save time and money tomorrow, and to keep me free to make quick decisions later. In other words, don't paint me in that infamous corner. And content supply chain. What do we need to do inside of our shop or with our outsourcers to take advantage of this opportunity? Let's take a look at the business model challenges across a couple of segments. The examples are identified by segment, but many of the underlying issues may also apply in your particular business. Exposing these issues in your business is why we believe that you should consider how to experiment with tablets in your markets, and we'll talk about some of the strategies to do that. The first segment is professional publishing. Outsell recently conducted a study which identifies the circumstances where knowledge workers would be willing to pay for information on mobile devices. 47% say that they would pay for mobile information if it saves time to complete a task. 29% said they would if the information was from a dependable source of trusted or valued information. 26% would pay for it if it would allow them to gain access to content. And 20% were willing to pay for notifications and important news and events. 34% still say that they are not willing to pay for information on mobile devices. These percentages are borne out by the fact that professional publishers are generally not seeing significant standalone revenues, and many mobile products are providing access to other existing digital products. See, for example, Thomson Reuters Westlaw Next mobile app for the iPad and mobile phones provide access to the Westlaw Next legal research platform using an existing subscription. The capability to sync notes and store research on one device and see it automatically on another is compelling for a lawyer who is on the move. But there is no additional subscription to the Westlaw Next service required to access the information. But these numbers are across all mobile devices and tablets, and tablets have the potential to change the game by providing a means to deliver book-length products that were not feasible on the small screen of a phone, or even providing workflow applications. I'll turn to Thomson Reuters again for an example of a professional publisher moving down this path. Thomson Reuters recently released a mobile app called ProView, which provides full access to full-length books that are purchased from an e-book store. The app allows you to search, bookmark, take notes, and highlight content. It's a step towards generating standalone revenue from a tablet application. Let's look at another segment, B2B, B2C, or advertising and subscription-based models. Again, the growth shown in this chart is across all mobile. Tablets are included in the numbers, but it's an indicator that tablets have to fit into a broader strategy of mobile engagement. You'll notice that advertising revenue growth is somewhat linear, but revenue from apps is currently growing nearly exponentially. This provides insight on a couple of dimensions. Obviously, advertising will continue to be an important part of your revenue mix, but generating revenue from apps should be an important part of your strategy. With that growth trajectory for apps, there's money left on the table if you don't tap into it. So how do you tap into both? We see that many companies in this segment are designing an experience, the tablet experience, if you will. They aren't just replicating print products on the tablet. Further, we see that social media is being integrated with that overall experience. For example, the Washington Post and the Guardian have integrated so tightly to Facebook that the mere fact of you clicking on a link sends an update to your Facebook newsfeed. That's led to more discussion of news on Facebook and more exposure for these companies and their products. So what about subscription revenue? Are subscriptions the way to go? As with most things, the answer is decidedly it depends. In the world of news, the Pew Research Center recently published findings that 42% of U.S. tablet users regularly read in-depth news articles and analyses on their screen, but only 14% pay directly for news content. Magazines are finding subscription revival with apps like Zinio, which, at least in my mind, blend that metaphor of a newsstand and home delivery of magazines for the tablet reader. Clearly, you need to consider a number of options for generating revenue in your markets. We'll talk in a bit about experimentation, and we find that to be a key theme to keep in mind as you design a print-to-tablet strategy and approach. Finally, let's look at magazine readership. This study by Affinity of magazine readers shows a growing readership of digital products. The chart shows how readers are consuming magazine content across some of the largest brand groups. Let's take, for example, Hearst Magazine to orient ourselves to this chart. 65% of consumers reading Hearst Magazine rely exclusively on the printed versions of the company's products, while 11% of Hearst audience, or that top bar, is interacting with content and advertising only in digital form. 1 out of 4 readers are now accessing Hearst-branded content in both print and digital form, and they're represented by that middle bar. So overall, we see that 35% of Hearst's total audience footprint is now comprised of digital readers. That's the combination of both digital-only readers and print and digital readers. Now, while the print-only reader bar is still large, there's a growing bar of print and digital readers. This points out an important trend in developing an overall branded experience, which was emphasized by Bob Sauerberg, who is the president of Condé Nast, at the 2011 American Magazine Conference. Condé Nast sees the tablet as a way to evolve how people buy its content. He said in a panel discussion at that conference, my goal in life is to find a way to transition from selling subscriptions to selling access to a branded experience. Not just changing the price, but redefining the product in a way that creates a branded experience. Condé Nast is now building print and tablet subscriptions to titles like Glamour and The New Yorker on the iPad, and the company is also working with the price of its tablet editions as a step towards creating that branded experience. Also announced just yesterday, Condé Nast released an app which is not magazine related at all, called Santa's Hideaway. It is a way for children to put together virtual Christmas lists that can be checked off by folks. Again, as a way that Condé Nast is looking to build that brand. On the same panel, in the American Magazine Conference, David Carey, who's the president of Hearst Magazine, said he's striving for Hearst tablet editions to be supported equally by revenue from consumer and advertisers versus the ad-driven print magazines. He said that the tablet will finally allow us to monetize our content digitally. So we believe that experimentation is going to be the key to finding these revenue streams, and finding ways to create that environment of experimentation cost-effectively is going to be a challenge. So that leads us into product development and product development challenges. There are some critical decisions that need to be made related to product development that lay a foundation and have a tremendous impact on future decisions in terms of flexibility, cost, and risk. The first is related to which platforms to support. We've already seen and talked about a variety of platforms and that a clear winner is not likely to emerge. So it's going to be important to support most in some form, which leads to a bigger question. Do you develop native apps, mobile web apps, or some hybrid? Each has advantages and disadvantages. Native apps are written using the programming language that are supported directly by the platform or with a toolkit that generates code. They will make greater use of native functionality of the device and the operating system, as well as allow distribution through the various stores. The major disadvantages of native apps is that they do tie you to a single operating system. This drives up the cost to develop for multiple platforms, and it even drives up costs when operating system upgrades happen to come along. Like recently when Apple upgraded to iOS 5, that required some updates to applications. Further, App Store rules may restrict you in ways that don't make sense for your business. Mobile web apps will have greater portability across devices and operating systems. Again, this is a technical comment, but it has significant impact on your strategic decisions. HTML5 is an emerging standard that supports rich media, offline content access, and geolocation services, among other features, across multiple devices. A disadvantage of mobile web apps is that these apps may not be able to access device-specific functions like accessing a camera. The Financial Times recently released a mobile web app, replacing their first-generation native app. In addition to making their content instantly available on a number of platforms, the mobile web app also allows a move away from Apple's 70-30 revenue sharing model for subscriptions and in-app purchases. Now, hybrid applications allow you to utilize a mix of native programming languages and functionality while also taking advantages of web standards like HTML5. The split between native and web standard can run the gamut, but the major advantage is being able to utilize native functionality when it adds value to your app. That's the piece that would have to be rewritten to move to another platform. And using standards for everything else to reduce the refactoring cost of moving to multiple platforms. Just as realizing the advantages are like moving a scale between native and mobile web apps, so are the disadvantages. The more native your app, the greater your cost for the native portion, and the more web appy your app, the less access you have to native functionality. So these are some of the first and most critical decisions. Once you begin settling on those, issues of design quickly come to the forefront. In design for tablet, questions cross all industries. Gartner analyst and Vice President David Willis said recently that major software vendors are taking the tablet seriously and embracing the market, following where users want to take the platform. This is entirely consistent with what we've talked about so far and what we're seeing in the market. Applications that tie with enterprise systems like ERP and CRM are launching now, but Willis points out that success lies in how the vendor refactors the application in a meaningful way, rather than just duplicating the traditional desktop or browser experience. We have to deal with design issues to create that tablet experience across multiple devices with different screen sizes. For example, the Kindle family has a 7-inch screen and the iPad has a 10-inch screen. The devices have orientation, so we need to manage landscape and portrait at the same time. And we are trying to engage the audience in a way that can be understood by us and engage them in a way that's interesting to them. Consequently, we find a whole new set of skills is needed in the organization. We need people that understand big data and analytics. We need technicians with new skills like HTML5. And we need people that can drive our ventures in social media and capitalize on the benefits of utilizing Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, and other social platforms. Going to tablets is not just a conversion to EPUB and pushing the same content to the web. Even if you try that, be prepared that content is not going to look the same as it does on the printed page. Even in that form, it's going to provide a different experience, a different look and feel. But rather, going to tablets is about understanding a bigger picture, engaging with your audience in a meaningful way, and delivering what we will call a tablet experience. The challenges to dealing with these, the challenges and the approaches to dealing with them that we've been discussing are interesting, and they form the essential legs to your print-to-tablet strategy. But for many information providers, the systems and processes used for content authoring and publishing are feeling significant pressure. Typically, we bolt on processes and content enrichment for each new device or platform. For example, we have seen situations where someone has taken print content, repurposed it for a CD, and then built a path from the CD to an ebook. Now, the CD product is no longer viable, but all of the production processes needed for CD are required to deliver the ebook. An added complication is that content is changing at each step, and some changes undo changes that were made in earlier processes. It becomes very difficult to know where and what the master is. Simply repurposing content to a tablet is not sustainable. That's not to say that converting book content, for example, to an ebook is not sustainable. I'm talking about that straight, fixed pages, which are essentially an image of the printed product. This approach would certainly put your content on the tablet, does not take advantage of the capabilities of the platform. We don't view that approach as sustainable in the market, as expectations for a tablet experience continue to rise. In practice, we typically see 4 challenges in the supply chain. With an array of bolt-on processes and conversions, we lose sight of our master content. The editorial master is important because we need to manage it as a major asset. Second, content itself is not enriched with the metadata, links, and such that are required to drive features in the tablet. Alternatively, sometimes we find that enrichment is included in the content that could be, but isn't, used in products. We also see that content and processes tend to focus on a single product or distribution channel. This creates an inflexible supply chain which needs to be retooled or replicated for new products. Let's say, for example, that there is content in the public domain which I want to utilize in multiple products. I can either acquire that content once and use it across those products, or I can acquire it separately for each product. Many of our content supply chains have been built around the product, and as a consequence, I do end up paying to acquire the same content multiple times. All of this combines to slow our response time, restrict speed to market, and hinder our ability to experiment with things like the tablet. We advise that a coordinated approach to evaluating your supply chain is in order. This includes assessing your content to ensure that it's designed to deliver the features you want to deliver on the tablet, enabling rich content and product development activities through reevaluating your content creation processes, and elevating the skills in your organization to meet the challenges that we've been discussing. It was interesting that the Jordan Edmondson Group recently found that greater than 50% of media executives recognize that the lack of talent in emerging areas of technology and internet production development is an internal barrier to growth. You may want to get ahead of that problem and assess the skills of your organization against what is needed to make a print-to-tablet migration. We see that the level and the distribution of skills related to content design, software development, and content creation, which today includes audio and video, and user interface design is often not aligned with what's being demanded in the marketplace. Even with all of these challenges, we believe that mobile development is not an option for information providers, and tablets are going to be an essential mobile platform. Customer expectations are growing around usability, flexibility, personalization, and engagement with their content. And companies that fail to deliver for mobility will see customers turning away. So how do we do this print-to-tablet migration? And how do we approach it in a way that allows for cost-effective experimentation? We believe that a two-pronged approach is appropriate. First, position the tablet in context of an overall product strategy, both short and long term, and begin to experiment. So, in other words, get in the game. Begin by defining the experiments that you will conduct. Look at subjects such as, how are you going to engage with your audience? How are you going to identify the impact of social media on your business? And what business models make sense for you? Is it paid content, freemium, advertising, or some combination of those? You also need to look at and identify the platforms to support and the development approach. Are you going to look at native apps, mobile web apps, or hybrid? Second, identify a path to migrate from print-first workflows to content-oriented workflows that will feed multiple channels, and those channels could include print and the tablet, and provide you a supply chain that will effectively prepare you and deliver your content. You might utilize an approach similar to what's on the screen to help avoid some of the common issues that we see in our practice. And essentially, what we like to do when we're getting started in a mobile project such as this is we'll sit down with the client and work on a solution visualization or understanding where you want to go with the particular product. And then we believe in an agile and iterative approach which ties both the development of technology and the development of your content together at the same time, and delivers quick feedback to you during that process. It also allows us to help you get to market faster. And we also believe, we've talked about this, that you should look at evaluating and upgrading your skills in your organization and of course, putting some careful consideration into how technology is selected. For the second prong, we advise our clients to consider migration to a single source of content, rather than tacking onto the end of the supply chain for new products and devices. It's by moving to this model that enables you to continue rapid-fire experimentation in a cost-effective way. It allows you to distribute content across a multitude of platforms, including print and tablet, while maximizing your operational efficiency and effectiveness. A couple of weeks ago at the last Gilbane conference, Joe Galizzi, who is of the Content Marketing Institute, set this goal for his audience during a keynote. Any content you create should be reimagined or repurposed 10 times. For example, content should be considered for repurposing over Twitter, posting on your company's Facebook page, conveyed in a YouTube video, share as a PowerPoint presentation on SlideShare, or distributed as an article in an online magazine. And while those examples may not be applicable to everyone on this call, the sentiment of creating content that can be repurposed is a key strategy. So once content is positioned as a single source, we can begin layering on enabling technologies to continue pressing for effectiveness in the content supply chain, such as adding in workflow management, looking at new delivery platforms, and providing deeper analytical tools. Of course, the specifics of these may or may not apply to you, but the concept of getting started in a way to solicit feedback from the marketplace while putting in place a sustainable operating environment should be considered in your print-to-tablet strategy. So we've gone over a lot of information in the last few minutes. We've talked about how external factors are driving challenges in our companies, and we've talked about some of the things you need to think about and approaches to address those challenges. But I think you'll be on the right path to developing a print-to-tablet strategy if you were to take away just these three things from the webinar today. The first, take a two-pronged approach. Design experiments in your market now, while at the same time evaluating your overall content and product processes. This moves you quickly towards a print-to-tablet migration and gives you flexibility to respond to changing conditions and expectations in the market. Second, design a tablet experience. Don't just repurpose content to a tablet device. Consider how tablets fit in your overall go-to-market strategy and utilize the tablet experience as a way to engage your customers. And finally, evaluate the skills in your organization. In order to make any of this work over the long term, you need an improved set of skills. This approach may include redesigning jobs or supplementing your team during a transitional period, but it's essential that you look internally to ensure that your teams are ready to drive your print-to-tablet aspirations. And with that, again, I hope that we are providing some actionable information for you. And Mark, if there are any questions, be happy to take them now.
So we do have a few questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, my biggest challenge is finding people who can actually build the proper files I need. There have been some who say they can build an EPUB, but then it turns out not being a verified file.
Yeah, so I think that's a question of vendor selection and finding the right partner for you. So I think your vendor selection process is one that you may want to evaluate and something that you may want to look at. And I think that's where I would start to begin addressing that sort of a problem.
Great. Second question. I've been laboriously rewriting my workbooks to fit Kindle's text-only format. Will the FIRE allow use of tables, forms, inset boxes, graphics, etc.?
I do believe that it will, because it is supporting HTML5 and it's supporting CSS. I don't know that 100%. So if you'd like to shoot an email, pop that up. If you'd like to shoot an email to me, I can make sure that you get a good answer on that.
Great, and Stephen's email address, as you can see on the screen, is scasbeer@innodata.com. That's scasbeer@innodata.com. It's right up on the screen for you. Another question, a KF8 versus EPUB, if that's a correct distinction, or Kindle versus iPad. If we have to support both, what is the cost metric? Is it 1.5? Is it 2x?
That again, I would have to get back to you on that particular one.
Again, please feel free to send Stephen an email directly. We can follow up on any of the questions that we can't answer on the spot. But let's continue. Another one coming in. Any studies on which kind of apps survive? In other words, which continue to be used rather than just sit on the device?
Yeah, it's the apps that are being used are the ones that begin engaging people. Those that just sit are the ones that are utilizing static content that are not really getting a real good audience engagement, and I think that's a key for you.
Another question coming in. I'm having trouble with the concept of single source content and universal platform usability. You seem to bridge this with adapting content to platforms to make use of features. Can you say more about the adaptation for different devices?
Yeah, the adaptation for different devices. So if we're talking about single source, the idea is to get the content in a format that you can then spin out in a lot of different ways. And if you're utilizing, if you choose to deliver on a, with a web app type of view, then the single source, if you're spinning out on web apps types applications, then really what you're looking at is just making minor tweaks to the content so that it's able to be delivered on multiple devices.
Another question coming up is, can we get copies of the slides? Yes, the slides can be made available. All we ask is that you send Stephen an email requesting them, and we'll get those out. Another question coming in, say more about what is included in, quote, the tablet experience. What are the key elements of the tablet experience?
I think the key elements of the tablet experience are, one, engagement. So you actually need to draw your user into the application. I think another is going to be being able to share information, be it via their social aspect, or being able to communicate back directly with you. We see a lot of that, that the whole concept of social reading. I'm not sure that that's exactly taken off yet, but adding an element of social interaction within your apps, I think, is going to be critical.
Do you have any sense of how apps are being utilized today in ongoing medical education?
Yeah. In medical education, you know, we're seeing quite a bit of activity with companies like the New England Journal of Medicine. They're very active in the tablet area, And if you search for New England Journal of Medicine in the iTunes store, you'll find a number of applications around that. The take-up in STEM and medical education doesn't seem to be incredibly rapid right now, but there is some experimentation being done. Again, New England Journal of Medicine is one. Nature is another. Nature Publishing Group is doing quite a bit of work there, and Elsevier is dabbling around some. That is just to cite a few. Those are some of the major players. We're also finding that they seem to be doing a bit more with applications than with native apps, with web apps versus native apps, just as from the technology perspective. Is there another question, Mark?
Yep. Any ideas on how to deliver apps or EPUB/PDF from your own site and keep them secure?
I think there's one really good example of this that we talked a little bit about earlier on, and that's with the Thomson Reuters ProView application. It is a custom application, and they are delivering e-books from a back-end that they control, and that allows them to allow you to bookmark on one device, pick it up on another device, highlight in one, store notes, and that sort of thing. So there are some good examples of that in the market today.
Any outstanding examples of textbook or reference e-books that illustrate your point about using the tablet experience?
Any particular ones? Again, I see a number just on the iTunes store. One that I think kind of jumps out, if you look at Netter. Netter kind of gives you a good example of how some of the tablet features may be able to be used. You know, and it's things not just around the engagement. It's how you engage the audience there. It's creation of 3D models versus just having flat pictures, things that can rotate, providing video and audio and that sort of thing that kind of captures your audience.
Where should the master editorial version be kept? Currently, mine are on Word docs.
I think the answer to that question is it depends. I mean, it kind of depends on your environment. It depends on the volume of your content. It depends on the size of the organization, the number of people that are accessing it, and that sort of thing. So those are some of the factors to consider.
Anything new on DRM? I want my IP secure.
Yes. So on DRM, there is a tremendous amount of work that's being done in that area. If you look at the SIIA as an organization that is very strong in working with DRM and in helping publishers and helping information providers secure their content from a digital rights perspective, I think that would be a good place to go for additional information.
Great. We're running out of time, so if there are any other questions, please feel free to contact Stephen directly. Again, you have his email. It's scasbeer@innodata.com. I want to thank everyone for joining today and remind folks that Innodata is going to be participating in a panel conversation on December 15th through Digital Book World's panel conversation entitled Illustrated eBooks During the Holidays, Opportunities for Publishers. You may see on your screen now some information there. Please feel free to visit Digital Book World to sign up for that. Again, please feel free to contact Stephen with any additional information needs or questions, and Steve will get back to you. Thank you all again. Wish you all a great weekend.